Checklist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Welcome back to the Tim and Steve Show. I am Tim Beard.
I'm Steve Morris.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, is that today?
Yeah. You're not Irish, are you?
Yeah, I think I don't know, Scottish, Irish, one of the two. A little bit different.
Everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. I like St. Patrick's Day. But not like, so Salt Hill was open this morning at like 8 a.m. Everyone's drinking Guinness and green beer and
see, that's what I have in mind after my last few weeks. You were talking about going to the coffee house. I think I need to go, like, have a few beers. And
you could. It's open. So if you go, like, 4 o'clock, drink, and then walk to the Opera House.
We could do that.
And then I could drive you home. Or maybe you've good, after that.
Yeah. I
don't know how long the coffee house thing would be, but
I only say that because my dog passed away last night.
Yes, I'm sad to hear that, but at the same time, I'm happy that he's in a better place. Well,
yeah, he was pretty bad the last couple of days.
Yeah, he really lost weight.
If I wouldn't have, when I adopted him, the kill room was on the way out, and the fear in his eyes, he knew exactly, and that's where he thought he was going, and so. Like, that's why normally I wouldn't want him. Like, the last couple of days he was pretty bad, but yeah. I made him as comfortable as possible and hung out with him, got very little sleep. So, that's why I'm like, I need a drink, I need a nap. I need to sleep with my mask on my back comfortably because I've been on the couch for like the last month. Like, because it's been coming.
Yeah. No, we talk more than on the show, and yeah, no, it's been something you've dealt with for a little while now, and so
rest in peace, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ashton, Bubba, he had all kinds of different names.
It's funny because he seriously looked like the Resident Evil dog, just because he was like bony, and he's an older dog. Obviously, he was what
16, maybe 17, because they didn't know if he was a year or two when I adopted him.
So he had that whole like. He would have been perfect around Halloween. He would scare the crap out of kids.
And I thought he looked like that when I first brought him back. But you look at videos,
right?
Even from when I get back September, October, he was a lot healthier even than he was like the last month. And even then, I thought like, old boy's on his last leg when I brought him back in September. But he had a lot of fun. Like with the puppy is really close with him.
Yeah, they had fun. They got together. Like, at first you were worried because he's like, puppy is obviously extremely hyper, and you were worried Tony was going to get hurt. But then Tony kind of got into his own, and he was.
Yeah, even like 3 days ago, he gave him his little snarl growl. So he had a little left in him a few days ago, but that's about all he could muster at old. It's just he wasn't mean to him. That was just the way that they played.
Right. But. Yeah, no, it sucks. Like, I remember when Andrew put down Lucy, which, they had Lucy for like 12 years, I think it was. And Emma, I've only been in her life, like, it was like 2 years at that point. And, she took the dog and, like, had it put down, and I had to, like, I dug the hole, the whole thing. And that was tough, even though, like, I wasn't super close to the dog. So having a dog that long, that's hard. Like, it's great having a dog. Like, we have a dog now, and it's, like, it's great, right? There's parts you're like, this damn dog runs off or something like that.
Gets mud all over the furniture that they're not supposed to be on.
Overall, like with most animals, though. But then when you get later and towards this part, it sucks because it's not just, it's not like your hamster died that you had for a year. Like, oh, it's sad, but who cares? You know what I'm saying? It's a much bigger thing. So
yeah, he was a guard dog. He, he really helped my parents out.
Yeah, and 16 years in your life is a
long time.
Long time. So now I show up this morning, I look around, because I knew it, like, you had figured it was close, and honestly I was hoping, because I was like, he's just not looking great. He's stopped eating, and we had joked because he seemed almost like try to throw himself down the stairs a bunch of times, and we're like, dude, I think your dog's suicidal. Which
he's like, kill me.
Yes, just put me down. But now you have peace at that, at least. That you don't, but it sucks. I get it. It's not fun. It's never fun when an animal.
No, he was just such a good dog for being a mutt and being a rescue and being a year or two old when I got him.
He is the typical dog that they kill down south more often, like Wags and Wiggles in town. We've talked before. For some reason, down south they like little dogs, like Chihuahuas or something, small, and like big dogs. But medium-sized dogs, like he was, so many kill shelters, and that's why there's like Wags and Wiggles, and there's tons of places around here that bring these dogs up from down south because they would go to kill shelters because there's so many of them, or whatever. And which I find crazy because I think he's like perfect size dog.
But he was a perfect size, and man, he just was so good.
Yeah.
Like to Zeta, only thing he ever did wrong that I can think of, other than having an accident here in the last month or so in the house. That's going to happen. But he tore off Zeta's favorite stuffed animal's face, and Grandma Barb, Nikki's mom, had to give a tiger a new face. So if you've ever that stuffed animal she still has on her shelf, or hell, she might have it in her pillow at college for all I know, but he has a made-up face because of old Tony on like his second day at the house. And then after that, he never did anything wrong. I'll give that dog credit. Beautiful, brindle-colored mutt. Good dog. Rest in peace, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for letting me have that moment of cathartic. It was a cathartic moment.
Well, it is our show, so it's not like...
Hey, I'm the color commentary.
It's all good. Although I am disappointed. I was hoping, we talked before, I was like, well, maybe when Tony passes, your paralyzed side of your face would go back to normal, because it happened when your other dog passed.
That's true.
Damn it. I was hoping for
that.
See,
I had put him down and held him whenever they injected him with whatever they inject him with. And he looked right up at me. That was Ranger.
Yeah, I can
back
do that.
in 2005. But it did not work. My face is still paralyzed. My James Bond villain eye is still tearing up over here.
It's so funny because I don't even notice it. And I mean, anyone that knows you probably doesn't. I mean, yeah, maybe someone that has never seen you. But, and of course, I get it. You're like paranoid about it, or...
Well, I mean, I was in the people business.
Yeah.
And so I know that everybody makes snap judgments, even though the woke side acts like they don't, and that's all bad. Everybody does it.
Yeah. You need a kick-ass story. Like, just make one up.
Well, as I get older, I'll probably have some bullshit I tell some.
Like, eventually you're going to have to tell your grandkids something like, just down the road, you just need a badass story. You have to.
Yeah, well.
So you get time to think about it. But you gotta come up with something.
The stress of going to war.
Nah, it's gotta be more badass than that. You gotta really,
because that also happened on that same day.
Yeah.
I got my second set of orders to go to Iraq, put my dog down, and had guests extend their stay. It was like a whirlwind of stress and pressure, and trying to not cry as I held my dog, because Nikki was in there with me, and that probably broke something internally.
Probably should just cry.
I should have, but instead I was, especially when he looked up at me. And this is not Tony, this was Ranger back in 2005. But anyway, it did not work. My face is still paralyzed.
Yeah, you need you were fighting a tiger or something. Like you gotta have something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Just stress, maybe. And who else knows what else I encountered when I was in my military. You never know. You know what I mean? It might not have been those three events combined. It could have been that plus something else.
All the juice they gave you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was on a lot of, not a lot, but I mean, back then they gave you a lot of milligrams of pain medicine. I had kidney stones. So, I mean, it could have been that.
You've had every vaccination. For,
everything.
Anthrax.
And
blah,
plus,
blah, blah, blah.
Who knows what else.
Yeah.
The more you research and find out how much they do and don't tell us, And then when you find out about it, they deny it for years, 60 to 70 years. They'll lock down that information. It's kind of like with the Vietnam vets. Yeah, like with the Vietnam vets, like, it takes them 40 or 50 years to be like, oh, you all were exposed to Agent Orange, so now you all can get credit for lung issues. It's like, you should have done that 40 years ago, whenever you all realized that all these lung issues were a result of Agent Orange. But you know what I mean? Like, so everybody with this whole grandiose about how great the government is, I'm here to tell you that, yeah, there are some good things about it, but it's slow moving, and it's not always just in its decisions. This, personal experience.
True story.
So what else we got going on today, now that I've gotten all my talking out of the way?
So, a few things, so we talked about doing a special show, and we're still going to, but I'm going to bring up one portion of that situation today and discuss it at length. But before we do that, let's talk about, tonight is at 6 o'clock at the Opera House is the 3rd annual Music Coffee House. Actually, Lydia went to Stevens last night, so Stevens...
yeah, how did that go? The Battle
Stevens
of the Bands type thing?
Yeah, well, Stevens Unity Newport there was 165 kids all in the gym and for a concert, and so it seemed like it went well, and that's crazy. That's a lot of kids. A lot of kids.
Did you go or just?
I had my zoning board meeting last night.
Oh, that's right. I watched that.
Yeah, so Andrea went, and Carrie went because Chloe was in it, Emma was in it, so TJ was there. Steven, you can see him in the back. He had the big old drum set, and so it seemed like it went well. And then tonight it'll just be the high school band, I believe, and it should be really good because it always is. And Steven's heavily involved with obviously the band, and he's their student rep on the board, and he's an amazing musical talent. So
yeah, good kid.
He is a good kid.
He's not afraid to speak up either.
I love it. I love it. I just sit there because, last meeting we had a presentation about the stats for behavior things in high school, and then this coming Thursday we'll have the elementary and middle school.
No, it's going to be the meeting in April. Just the next meeting in April.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm sure they probably had to. So this is the issue you have whenever you have different organizations all doing the same thing. If you don't send out, and maybe they did this, right? I don't know the exact reason, but I do know that it's scheduled for the first meeting in April. So I used to always turn things in first when I could, because I didn't want to turn it in third or second, and then the headquarters say, oh, do it in this format that this other unit did. Right? But if you turn it in first and they like your format, then everybody else has to copy your format. So I'm sure there's some other things in there to do with that, with just finalizing the data.
We won't get into that, but...
Well, they got to give a pre-brief to Donna, and they got to ask... They should. I know you're looking at me like that, but if they don't do a pre-brief and Donna doesn't think about the kind of questions that you're going to ask, that Mr. Spaulding's going to ask, that Jenna's going to ask, that I'm going to ask, she's not really being fair to them. So if it were me, I would have them present it, and then I would, because you ask a certain type of questions, Mr. Spaulding asks certain types, Jenna does, and I, right? We all have different things that we think about. And as a leader of an organization, you should be setting your, like in this case, her subordinates, right? The principals of the building, she should be setting them up for success so that they're not going in there and getting asked a bunch of questions they can't answer.
Sure.
Because, well, if you think about it, we've seen one, right? And so some things, like, we don't need as much line by line, right? The way
Here's my thing, though. They just take this off of Power School. It probably takes 5 minutes.
And
if you're the principal and you can't answer the questions, then you're not good at your job, because that is your job. I'm not going to ask you, what's the average grade of, discipline issues? Like, nope, don't care about that. But anyways, next in April. So anyways, back to Steven. Steven disagreed with something that was said about the high school about in-school suspension and kids using their phones and not just for like they're allowed to use them for music, but obviously use them for more, and then they don't have like super, like someone's not just standing there watching the whole time. He called it out, which takes courage back to, you go back.
Well, he's getting more comfortable because even later on when he asked questions about graduation, his tone was kind of like...
was a little too much, yeah.
Like, I don't even think we use a tone like that. You know what I mean? But he's passionate about it, right? Like, it's too late
He's
now.
a very passionate
It was
person.
about the graduation date being so late in June this year.
Yeah, because in the past it's been a week before, and they explained it to him, and he was just kind of mad because he's like, "Why do we?" I get it. You're a senior.
He's ready for life to begin.
So, but anyways, I admire his courage to speak out, and
well, that's what we expect from.
Yes,
that's what you want.
I smile every time because I'm like, that's what I want. I'm sure the principals and other people don't because
I think that they appreciate it because if you don't get that, that's exactly why we have that position on there is so that they're not telling us one thing and we're getting, and not that they would,
but
it gives us different perspective, exactly.
Student perspective, which is a very, very important perspective, and then there's the principal, and obviously they're going to be a little different because two different walks of life, right? So, and I love it because some people would just probably be like, I don't want to say anything negative or anything that, represents something bad.
Yeah, he didn't care that he contradicted the principal whenever they said that they're working on the phones. He was like, I don't think you're working on the phones because I get text messages all day, every day from my friends. Until he sold his friends out the room. Not that he was selling them out, but he was like, it's not as effective as you think. If that's really what you think is effective, it's not because they're on their phones doing everything but.
The other thing that's funny is I had a conversation with Shannon at one point, and she's like, it's like Steven had said that at a previous meeting, and she's like, Steven's never even been in school suspension as far, and I just thought it was funny because but I get it. He's like, well, my friends are sending me snaps and all that, and it's happening, right? But and I get it. It shouldn't be this super fun place, and some people would rather, I'll just go here. This is more fun.
I don't know if I share at the school board meeting. I think I've said on the show, Zeta. Right, got in-school suspension in Hawaii, and she was like, "It's the greatest thing ever" because she had all of her work done by 10:30 because there were no distractions.
Right,
and it was like she realized also that she didn't have that much work that she was doing throughout the 7-hour days because she was done by 10:30 in the morning, and then just kind of sat there.
I discovered that during COVID when you could do the whole school day in 2 hours, or like my brother when he went to my youngest brother went to.
Well, that was also part of the problem, doing it in 2 hours.
Well, Kearsarge has it's like an adult program, whatever, but it's for students. It's an alternative education, so students that struggle in school, which my little brother was one of them. He would go every week, Monday through Friday for, I don't know how many months it was, but 2 hours to get his diploma. So he actually gets an actual diploma. He doesn't graduate with the Kearsarge. They have their own little graduation, which is really cool. But it just shows that he could learn everything he needed to meet the state standard in 2 hours. Yet we send these kids to school for 8 hours a day, which is something wrong here.
No, but think about it. So the CTE program, right? So some of those kids are not spending all 8 hours in a classroom.
Correct. But the point is, as far as the state and the education is, technically all these kids could get their education done in 2 hours of actually.
Well, technically,
doing work.
if that's what they did for that program.
Yes. So that's my, obviously, you have lunch, you have, in between, and there's things in school you can't get if you, there's the social aspects, there's tons of different aspects, but the fact that you could do the school and graduate with 2 hours a day, I don't remember, I'd have to ask my mom how long the program was, but it wasn't.
I'm sure you had stuff to do at home, too, though, right? It wasn't just, no?
No, it was just on there. But it's a great program because a lot of these kids that probably wouldn't have graduated, these kids could still, some of these they could work like during the day, and because there's a lot of some of them did it because of taking care of family. There's a lot of different reasons, and these are like 16, 17, 18-year-olds or whatever.
I could see that. You need reading, writing, and arithmetic. You need some critical thinking. I would like to see, like we're doing, we're adding civics across the state. That's not a Newport thing. And then I would really like economics class of some kind that goes all the way down to tax preparation, that teaches our young soon-to-be graduates how to defeat the IRS and take advantage of every single loophole. Now, granted, the more money you have and the bigger you have, more loopholes that apply to you. But there's got to be something for us little folk down here in Newport that help us not overpay the government, especially when a lot of us have issue with what they're spending our money on.
Yeah, I watched.
Which the budget? Did you know that the budget doesn't have anything to do with Social Security? And of course, they're saying it's going to be insolvent in 10 years, or they've been saying that forever. But
it's all full of woke stuff.
$4.5 trillion budget, and it doesn't
6 point something.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't address Social Security.
Yeah, well,
Which, we talk about not being a socialist country. Well, that's very much a social program that we all put in, and if you put into it, you should get out. But the problem is that I think in 10 years, those that have already paid in will get a 25% cut. So, like, if my parents are still alive, they'll lose a quarter of their Social Security in 10 years.
Yeah, Social Security is stupid because if you participate, which everybody does, right? I don't know if you legally have to or what the deal is, but
I think you do.
You don't if you're a business owner. Like, I didn't have to, but if you don't participate, then you get nothing at that point. But however, if you were to take the money that you put in there and then invest privately, you would make far more money than.
Well, that's what the military switched to. Like, I have a set retirement, right?
Right.
50% of my last 3 years averaged, whatever.
Right.
And then now, people who are already in obviously were grandfathered, but all new military soldiers, sailors, airmen, but whenever they come in, they do like up to 6% of their paycheck. The Army matches it. And so that way you still have something. So if you only do 6 or 7 years, you still have something later on in life. So, I mean, there's some benefits to it.
Right.
Obviously the volatility of the market is where the concern is, right?
What's not even as much as the volatility of the market is the fact that the government has borrowed against Social Security for how many years now? Where they're taking like $50 billion a year out of it or something like that. Which
I'd have to look, but it's been a while. They've been borrowing from it for a long time.
I mean, I graduated 21 years ago, and they were saying when I was in school that it was like it's going to end, it's going to end.
Yeah, when I was in college studying American politics, we were predicting that it was going to end before 2010. So that was in the mid-90s as well.
It's also another Democrat talking point. Like, those Republicans are going to take your Social Security and Medicaid. Well, they haven't done it yet. It's been 30 freaking years, so...
No, the politicians have just been taking it.
Yeah, well, yes.
They've been borrowing it.
Both
technically.
sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's why we got to call and write in. I talked to one of our representatives, Skip.
Yep.
And he was, because I asked him, I was like, does it make a difference if we write you, like if we email you about something, like does it influence you? Kind of getting to the point of like, do you just vote party line or, he said it makes a difference. So, write your local and federal congressmen and women and let them know what you want. A quick email that says, hey, I disagree with your support of X, Y, and Z. Because at least they have it, and they can't say, well, no one's ever written me. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to become apathetic when you're like, well, they're just going to vote party line, either party. But there's always 13 to 16 that don't, depending on who's in charge.
I was just looking up So anyways, there's a selectmen's meeting on Monday night, 6:30. First part's public hearing on, I think, 3 bond items, and then the regular meeting. I can't find the agenda yet, but so one of the things that I know from what I've been told by people that's going to be brought up is this Main Street parking proposal. So the state was in last meeting, and this summer they're paving all downtown Main Street and stuff, which great, that's awesome. They were supposed to do it
last year. Yeah, like what happened to that?
I don't know. So the state has volunteered, I guess you could say. I don't know. Said that they would do the lines and stuff if they'd like while they're there, and the town was like, yeah, sure, that'd be great, right? We don't have to do it, whatever. So, however, in order to do it to code as of today, kind of, whatever. So right now there's 114 parking spots, and there's 107 standard and 7 dedicated accessible, so handicap. The proposed way they're planning on doing it, and it was approved last meeting by the select board, will be they're reducing it to 91 parking spots, 87 standard, 4 dedicated accessible, and there's currently 4 cross sections, and they're going to take 1 out because if they kept the 4, it would take even more spots away. So obviously there's concern from business owners on Main Street and everything, like, hey, you're taking away, a bunch of parking spots. What about us, kind of thing, like what, So it's proposed of 23 parking spots that will disappear. So obviously a bunch of people are pissed about this. So they're going to, from what I understand, show up in the meeting Monday night, open forum, and be like, what the hell? I also, and these are just things I hear, so maybe it doesn't happen. But
So we're going to allegedly?
Well, yeah. Well, this I don't think it's allegedly. This one I'm pretty confident on. But the other thing is, supposedly Stevens will be back because the town's dicking around with him over the waivers for the 6-ton posting. So they gave him the waiver, but it's just for his trucks. So, for instance, Carroll and United get waivers. It's like I can drive to Carroll today or United and get material. Well, technically, the waiver for Stevens anyways is just for Stevens. So if I went to Stevens' pit to get it, I'd be breaking the law, technically, driving on a road that's posted, and I don't have a waiver. Well, that's never how it's worked. It's always been Carroll, Concrete, United.
It seems like there's a lot of things that is happening to Stevens that don't apply to everybody else.
Seems it. It's very interesting, isn't it?
It's an observation that if you watch a few board meetings, you'll see that there's just something not right there. Something doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. So Monday's board meeting. You should go. I'm going to go, and I'm bringing my camera.
I'll have to sit 6 feet away from you, and I'm sure Bert will be there because he's always there. I don't want to get accused of...
I don't really give a crap. I think people accuse me whatever they want.
That's true. I mean... So
I will have some stuff to say. I'm planning on anyways. But we had said earlier this week, like, we're just going to do a whole show about this corrupt BS that's happening in town. And I was like, well...
That's what it appears to be.
Yeah. So we're still going to do that, but I wanted to get into some of it today because I want people to watch this show over the weekend and then be like, you know what? I think I really need to go to this board meeting on Monday and ask some questions because as a citizen, I'm very concerned about what is happening to my town and
our local businesses. And just things don't seem to be in the best interest of Newport taxpayers. It was funny because last night at the zoning board meeting, never in 5.5 years I've been on the board, has Hunter been at the meeting ever. Hunter being the town manager?
Yeah. And
Mr. Reesberg?
It's interesting, though, because I was in the room first. I wasn't super early. I was like, shit, where's everybody?
Yeah, I got off the phone with you like at 6 when you were,
I know.
You were like, yeah, I got to go.
I stopped at Cronus's. I got a drink because I'm like, it's going to be a long meeting. And I went, and so anyways,
when I realized it was 6, I was like, man, he's going to be cutting it close.
I was like, yeah, I can get there. So, as always, he's like, I hear you have some strong opinions about the school and the ham or whatever. And, yeah. He's like, well, you can come in anytime. So to his credit, you can come in anytime. I'll show you the emails. And I just said, well, I've seen the emails. And so he is.
I think you should go see the emails because.
Yeah, he's basically stating that there's more emails that I haven't seen.
Then yes, you should go see those if you got the invite. I would go see them.
So anyways, so I mean, the zoning board meeting.
In fairness.
Yeah. So the zoning board meeting last night, there was supposed to be 5 cases. Avenue wanted an extension again. And I motioned, I'm like, no. They've wasted our time and they've wasted the residents' time 2 meetings in a row because they need more time to do whatever they're doing. They can reapply. It was my opinion, and it was the motion. It was seconded, and the board agreed. Like, yeah. Oddly enough, Sunapee Street, which was presumably why Hunter was there, the guy didn't show up, which was odd.
It was odd.
That got continued. So we typically will continue a case 1 month because stuff happens.
Yeah.
You know, it does, and it's understandable. And so we had another case last night, same thing. It didn't show up. So, well, no, continue it. And we did continue the Sunapee Street 1 more month. Technically, maybe it was on the agenda for 3 meetings in a row, but when we said, no, we need to completely rehear the case, you know, so last night would have been technically the only time it had been heard. So we'll see what happens, you know, next month. But I just thought it was interesting. And we made a motion last night. Well, I made the motion, and we all agreed, which I was glad. It was no more Zoom. Like, residents can, like, Zoom in if you're a butters or whatever you want to speak. And technically, like, anyone that's presenting can still Zoom, but there has to be someone representing their company in our room to answer questions, to present, whatever. Because over Zoom, I'd be like, this doesn't make sense. Well, that person can't see what I'm saying. It's too complicated. And if, you know, and maybe it's not as complicated on, like, little thing. Like, we approved a mini house last night, or a little house, teeny house, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, maybe we could have done that over Zoom. But the point is, you're the one who needs the variance or whatever. So come to the meetings. I mean, and it's like, well, Zoom, technically, it's not even in our policies. The only reason it happened at all was because of the state of emergency, so that we could still hold meetings and have a quorum. I could Zoom in, which you can't do that anymore. You have to have a quorum in that room now. That's all gone away. So, yes, I don't mind Zoom as a sense of, you know, maybe someone wants to speak, they're under the weather, whatever. But if you're presenting a case, then you are the applicant. You should be there. So luckily, you know, everyone, in my opinion, everyone said, yeah, no, we agree. It's too confusing. And then they were still doing it with the planning board, which the zoning is fairly easy. It's pretty straightforward. The planning is a whole, like, much bigger job, because there's details. We're not detailed people. We're just like, yeah, okay, you should do it, you know, whatever. So hopefully the planning board will follow suit and be like, yeah, you're right, like, because you can't do it that way. Like,
I did notice it was interesting that when y'all approve, there's like 3 or 4 different motions for the one approval, because you got to word everything, I guess, to give them permission for this, that, or the other.
It's confusing too, because
because y'all did it a couple times. It took me.
There's
I don't know
5.
about the second
there's
one.
a cheat sheet. There's 5 questions, and we have to meet all of those. And we used to all fill them out, and then we're like, why are we all filling these out? The chair, like, you only need 1. So then we did that, which was smart. It sucks when I'm the chair, because then I have to fill it out. But anyways, my confusion has always been, okay, so what if we meet on, like, all 3 of these? Like, okay, yeah, I agree. But then on the 4th one, we don't. Then technically, I believe it fails, because, well, you'd still have to have the majority vote.
Right.
But I don't know, it's confusing. And no one really.
But it was interesting, because I didn't realize it was like, I thought it would have been like, yeah, we motioned to approve.
Simple.
And it was done. But no,
It's because if they want to appeal it, or if they feel like, you know,
or if it passes 3 out of the 4 or 4 out of the 5, then they can maybe work on that one.
Yeah, like, you could, like, anything that passes, technically a citizen can appeal it, and then we'd have to rehear it. And then if it.
You mean doesn't pass?
Or passes.
Oh.
Like, if we have a customer, if we have a citizen and we approve something, the neighbors, like, they could file appeal. There's like a process, whatever. And then if we can't settle it, then it goes to, like, Superior Court or whatever. Luckily, we don't have, like, things don't usually go that direction. But I don't know. And I'm very much like, it's your property. You should be able to do whatever the hell you want. unless it affects like.
And y'all had some citizens that showed up to talk about one of them. I guess the one on Bradford.
Yeah, the one. Excuse me. And I honestly think, because we did talk about it a little bit, he wasn't there, but I think they were just concerned like what he was trying to do, because it's a weird property.
I kind of heard of
horseshoes around there.
Y'all cut him off when the guy was like wanting to be heard.
Yeah, it was like
came in
17 acres, and basically you have to have 200 feet of road frontage per property, and this would be like 184 because he wants to subdivide. And I think they were just concerned, like, hey, what is this guy? What's happening here? Which, yeah, all right, as a citizen and as a neighbor.
Well, see, you would think you would go brief your neighbors. Like if I were going to do something,
go talk to him, say, hey.
Yeah, like
it's tough though. Like I agree, but then sometimes like you might have the neighbor that's like,
yeah, that's true.
No, that's ridiculous. I'm like, wait a minute, this is my property.
Yeah, not everybody has good relations with their neighbors,
right? So, yeah. So anyway, so the meeting on Monday coming up. If you're interested in speaking of that or anything else. But part of the thing I want to get into, over the last 2 days, I've gone through the minutes of selectmen meetings, and I watched all these meetings anyways, but it's interesting because there's things in the minutes that I would have kind of thought wouldn't have been in the minutes. Like,
well, that's the one thing about Newport's minutes. We have some very detailed minutes compared to...
Maura does a really good job. Like, so, it's crazy. But
so, what did you find when you were scrubbing the minutes?
Yeah. So this is just for a minute. So you can go to the town's website, pull up the minutes from all these meetings, and you'll find exactly what I'm about to say. I cut pieces out of all the minutes that were relevant to this discussion, and you know what I'm saying. But you can read every one of them. You'll draw the same conclusion. It's just harder to get the point because there's so much more information. Like
you kind of have to watch the meetings to get the full.
Yeah, or read all the minutes, and then because there's multiple pages and there's a lot to read, and then you have to remember between the meeting. You know, it's just I want to lay it out to people
as simply as possible,
and still it's I have to read these, so it's probably not quite as simple, but. And this is just one of the issues. There's many other issues, and but I was like, hey, let's just tackle one today. So not even fully, just like to show
a preview
of the upcoming things, because I've decided with all the things I've seen, all the things I've heard, because lots of people talk to me, and yeah, I've had enough of the, I'm calling it corruption in the town as far as things being done that aren't on the up and up.
They don't appear to be.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, like, if they are on the up and up, these things I'm about to say they just would add up, and they don't add up. So back on September 19th is when all this started with Stevens coming into selectmen meetings. So it's K.A. Stevens is the construction company. It's Josh Stevens and his wife, Melissa. I think it's Melissa. Sorry. I went to school with them. I should know this. But so I just want to start right from September 19th meeting. This was brought up to the board. Okay.
What was brought up to the board? Just
that Coon Brook Road was posted at a 6-ton posting limit. It had apparently been posted now for a year or close to a year or something like that, which meant Stevens, to get to their pit, couldn't go over the Coon Brook Bridge. They had to go all around through Claremont to do anything, which was obviously a huge inconvenience and huge expense because it adds an hour to your trip. So he's asking, why is this road posted, or why is this bridge posted? Because this bridge has an E2 rating, which is 88,000 pounds plus. So the state certifies the bridge is made for tractor trailers. It's not a little small bridge on a back road. It's right. It's a bridge made for tractor trailers and all that stuff. But it's been posted, and so on the 19th he brings this up.
September 19th,
September 19th,
2022.
2022, yes. During this meeting, Town Manager Reesberg stated, and it's the first time he's heard of this, and he asked the subject to be postponed to October 3rd meeting when he will bring an update on the concern. So basically, I was just during our meeting, he said, hey, this is happening. I believe it was that meeting they said, like, well, why'd you wait so long to come to us? And he's like, well, there's a process to go through, asking, and there is just like, don't just come to the school board meeting and complain about something that's happening necessarily.
Go to the principal
first,
go to the superintendent, then come to us.
There's just a process.
Right.
Not that you can't, but you should respect the process. And if that doesn't work, then absolutely. But so Mr. Stevenson, that's what he was doing, So next meeting, October 3rd. Mr. and Mrs. Stevens addressed the board about the Coonbrook Bridge posting. He asked the board if they had follow-up information. And from the September 19th meeting, Reesberg stated that it's the first time he heard of this, and he asked to postpone to the October 3rd meeting when he'd bring it up. So, like I said, these are all verbatim from the minutes.
So now you're reading from the October 3rd minutes. The
October 3rd minutes.
Next meeting where he's supposed to have an update.
Yes. Town Manager Reesberg stated he did not know the topic would be brought up on October 3rd meeting, and he believed that some engineers, one from Daniels, one from Hoy, Tanner, and Associates, have inspected the bridge and recommended that for the life and safety of the bridge, the weight load should be reduced. Documentation is off his desk. Town Manager Reesberg addressed the board members and explained the steps that the town takes in good faith and had engineers look at the bridge, and he'll forward these reports to K. Stevens if he wishes. So, just trying to make sure. Yeah, it's okay. Just want to make sure I'm still in the same meeting. So Mrs. Stevens said that the 144-30 state inspection reports with pictures dated July 21st, 2020, January 26, 2021, and July 7, 2022. So the last inspection on the bridge was July, and this is September, so a few months prior to. The photos showed significant improvements over time. The state give it a 555 rating. The town posted it for 6 tons. Mr. Spaulding Sr. gave the several scenarios board of the hardship of posting the ton for a 6-ton bridge, and he said something was wrong. Mr. Spaulding reminded the board that in 2020 he informed them of a bridge in disrepair, and it had not been inspected, posted, or closed. So that
was the one, I think I remember that meeting where he talked about you could reach in and...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's talking about Paul's Mills Bridge, which I plan on getting pictures of this bridge in. I'm pretty sure, because I remember Paul's Mills Bridge, like they have cones on one side so you didn't drive on that side.
Yeah, that's how they described it too in one of those meetings, because I was watching.
But, so this just shows that in 2020, no one seemed to care. Mr. Reesberg, DPW, who didn't seem to care about another bridge that he had brought to their attention because it hasn't been addressed and still open to this day, according to Mr. Spaulding. But suddenly this bridge,
So the state, who's responsible for inspecting it, inspected it in July, in 2020, 2021, and 2022. July 2022, they said this bridge is good to go.
Yes.
Basically like a new bridge, but not.
Yep. Yeah, it's the highest.
So that was in July. So that report should go to who? The town, I would imagine?
Probably.
Right? DPW?
I'd imagine. Yeah. And states are responsible for inspecting bridges, nobody else.
So who are these two other people that they had inspect this bridge?
Well, one would be Daniels Construction, allegedly, because this is all allegedly, because I don't think he ever even showed reports, because I don't think it ever happened personally, but which is a conflict of interest because Daniels got the bid on the Sandhill Bridge, which we'll bring that up in our next show, the fraud and crap that happened there, because Stevens was the lowest bidder, and by law, the lowest bidder is supposed to get the job, and he didn't, and there was actually a letter sent to the state to disqualify Stevens on the job. And there's a straight-up lie in this letter signed by the head of the DPW, who still has his job, and nothing happened.
Head of DPW here in Newport?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, good times. So, and we won't even get into that today, because we'll save that for the next show. But, so now we're on the next meeting, 3rd, and then we are on 17th, I believe. Mr. and Mrs. Stevens returned to the select board for this.
So this is the third meeting.
Yep.
So you had September 19th or
Yes.
about October 3rd.
Yeah, and I want to point out on this meeting, the third time they showed up, the board voted. Mr. Burrows was absent that night. The other 4 board members were there. Mr. O'Connell didn't agree with the decision, but then went with it to put open forum at the end of the meeting so they could conduct business first rather than do it like they always do, which is open forum first and has been forever.
That's interesting because I remember some of the board members coming and telling us not to do that, to make it more open than what we had been at the school board.
Yeah, it's interesting. So they show up for the third time, request answers, same questions as September, October's earlier meeting. They again ask for answers to the select board to explain Coomber posting. Mr. Stevens really asked why it was posted. He now wants to know why the posting sign has been taken down without explanation. So at this point, after the third meeting, October 3rd meeting, at some point in between there and the next meeting, the sign's taken down, which obviously I'm sure Mr. Stevens is happy about, but wants an explanation. He now wants to know why the posting sign was taken down without any explanation whatsoever. The posting reason conflicted with the state's evidence that he had brought to the board. There was no reason from the town for the posting or the removal of the posted sign. He asked for an explanation. Town Manager Reesberg stated he did not know the topic would be brought up at the October 17th meeting, and he was not prepared to speak on it. Town Manager Reesberg stated he believed there was confusion between posting of the bridge and posting of the road. The posting was for the road. So 3 meetings later, he says it's the road. The meeting prior to that, he said that engineers had looked at the bridge because there was concerns on the bridge. So now he's saying it was the road that was posted because he got caught with the fact that the bridge has no issues, and so I have to make up something, right? So
it appears to be.
Yeah. So this is just what gets me, and this is what should piss everybody off in town, and this is what should get you to reach out to your selectmen and to show up at the meeting, because clearly there's a lot of funny business happening in this town, and I don't care, and I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to bring it up until it's solved. I have nothing to lose. You can target me next. Go for it. I could care less. But if you look at everything that's happened in this period of time and even today, clearly Stevens Construction has been targeted over this. They continue to be harassed and targeted by the town. And if I was Stevens, I would sue the living shit out of the town of Newport. And I would sue Todd Cartier, the head of the DPW, personally for writing a letter that was fraudulent. It was illegal. What was said is not true. Bert Spalding Sr. called Henniker, and Barry Connell was supposed to call Henniker, and they said, no, Stevenson's never done a bridge here. But the letter, which I'll show on the next show, says, quote, they did a job and didn't do a good job and didn't meet the timing of it, which is funny because Daniels Construction asked for a 3-month extension to finish that bridge, which was granted. So here we go. We had 3 meetings in a row and it's in the minutes, which is crazy. It's like, it's in the minutes, and they're approved that this is, so these are approved minutes now. They're not draft minutes. So the select board acknowledges that this is what happened at these meetings. So on the 19th, Hunter knew nothing about it. No clue. Okay, I'll give you that. They come in, we didn't know. We'll talk about it on the 3rd. On the 3rd, I didn't realize we were going to talk about this today. Even though it states in the minutes, he said, I will update you on the 3rd. Then, once again on the 17th, the next meeting, I didn't know it was going to be brought up this time. I'm not prepared to speak on it.
You must be misremembering something, Tim.
I must be misremembering. Oh, wait, no, these are the minutes on the town website. You can go find those. You also can go on NCTV's website. You can look up these meetings, and you can watch this for yourself. So
that would be the best way to do it, if you had the time.
Yeah. So I didn't know on the 3rd. I didn't know on the 17th. I just never know. Like, I'm just so confused.
It's interesting how he didn't know it was going to be discussed, but then also knew that it wasn't meant for the bridge, it was meant for the road, but then they had 2 inspections of the bridge.
Yeah.
So I just want to know what the truth is.
The truth is he's lying, and they posted it illegally, to screw with Stevens. They got caught.
That's what it appears.
They got caught. He proved the bridge had no issue whatsoever, and mysteriously then the signs were taken down. Then he lies and said it was never about the bridge, it was about the road, which he stated in previous meetings. Clearly it was about the bridge because he was having engineers look at the bridge, and we can go right back to it right now. He stated that he didn't, oh, once again, he didn't know. He believes some of the engineers, one from Daniels and one from Hoyle, Tanner, and Associates, have inspected the bridge and recommended that for the life and safety of the bridge, the weight load should be reduced. Documentation is on his desk. So, okay, so you said on the October 3rd meeting that the bridge has been inspected and it was about the bridge. Well, suddenly the next meeting, it was never about the bridge. It was about the road. Which I also now want to tell the community, and you can look this up, and it's even in the minutes. The town manager, the DPW, nobody in the town of Newport, or any other town for that matter, has the legal right to post any road. Only the selectmen in the town have a legal right to post a road. That's why right now you see all these little orange signs that says 6-ton road limit per order of the selectmen, because the selectmen are the only ones with the law on their side that actually can post a road. So I don't care if the town manager said go post it, or if the head of DPW or anyone said, oh, go post a road. It's illegal. You can't go post a road. You have no legal authorization to do so. So, very interesting. So, let's continue with that meeting. Town Manager Eastberg addressed the board, asked specific questions to ask.
Is this the October 17th meeting?
Same meeting. Town Manager Eastberg addressed the board and asked specific questions to ask the Public Works about the event. He claimed no knowledge of what had happened with Stevens and explained his response to the concerns. Town Manager Eastberg stated he had not seen anything malice happen, malicious. When he asked the board members to discuss their opinions, understanding, and knowledge of the subject, it would be discussed out of public session. Why would you discuss this out of public session? So clearly something happened here, but we're not going to talk about this in public because it might look bad for someone, probably town manager and his subordinates. But it's a secret, big secret. First of all, if you have an employee that commits, this would technically be committing a crime because you have no legal, you can't do this.
Well, I mean, it could cost them business.
It did cost them business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like,
So, but no, we can't talk about this in public. And he tells the board, you can't talk about this in public. Last I understood, the Board of Selectmen were voted public servants that represent me and you, that answer to me and you, and that are in charge of the town manager because he works for them. Thus, like Donna works for us as school board members, and we work for the community. So it's interesting, though, when you watch the meetings of the select board for the last 6 months, sure doesn't seem like the select board runs the show. It seems like the town manager runs the show, and he tells them what's going to happen. Thus, going back to you'd have to vote to stop me on the airport thing that gets you going all the time.
I know. I thought about saying that, but I didn't want to get rage-alicious. I mean, to me, that just showed, there was public debate and everything else. And it wasn't said, hey, this is one of those things that I have authority for, if you don't want to give me the authority, then, you need to vote to take away that authority. Because the way I understand my authority, right, there's no explanation with it. And so the only way that I could see that as a citizen watching this is that he just punked out the select board. But in the tone that he used, right? Like if I had received that tone from someone and I'm on a board, I'd be like, well, who are you talking to?
Yep.
Like, why are you talking to me like this when it's a discussion about the airport? And we have the expert telling us not that this isn't as rosy as it's being depicted. Because I would have said, we're going to take another couple weeks, and I need to call some other towns and talk to their select board members and see if they've noticed anything. And then maybe they don't have any issues, whatever else. But to me, it didn't seem like there was a rush for that decision. And then to say, well, you're going to have to vote to stop me. Like, well, first off, timeout. Who do you work for?
And what Steve was talking about is when the town voted to allow Hunter to change the airport from a state mandated or state regulated airport to an FAA airport, which is the federal government, because apparently we can get a bunch of money to fix the airport, which needs to be done. And during that meeting, the people from the airport contested and did not want that to happen because they stated that it was a bad idea, and once the feds are in control of it, it would basically turn to shit, just like everything.
My understanding of it was that the FAA, you get money immediately, whereas on a state, it's just kind of like, it's like our CTE, where there's a rotating, every 3 or 4 years, you get a few $100,000 for improvement, versus the FAA is like, no, you need to improve this right now. That, to me, was like the biggest, that was the pro that I could see. Like, all right, well, but then you have to think about second and third order effects, which they kind of talked about, which is like we do the car show, Easter egg, fireworks, whatever, like all those ancillary things that make Newport special in my eyes as a...
Yes, and in order to do those now, you have to ask the FAA for permission to do so. And I'm curious if that's why the Easter egg hunt's not there this year. The car show is scheduled for that, but the Easter egg is not, which is odd because... Yes, you could do it on the common like they've done in the past, but there's so much more parking there. There's so much more room there. There's not traffic to worry about if a child was to run into the road. Plus, technically, like the plane was supposed to drop the eggs. There was just some weird thing last year where they couldn't get the clearance from the FAA, which I don't understand. But I don't know why it's now there, and I
don't want to speculate.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate because I'm not sure, but I'll ask someone at some point.
But like it's a difference, right? Like we were told we weren't going to see much of a difference.
Right.
That you just have to write everything up perfectly with no errors on it, which is easy to do.
So then...
Allegedly.
November 7th, and this is just another point I want to make on this. So Vice Chairman Connolly said that it was a new policy and they would make sure it was taking place. Also, the Public Works was asked to default to New Hampshire bridge ratings, and if there was a concern, the Public Works Department was to inform you, as in Stevens or me or any other person that would be affected, of their right to a hearing, because the DPW never said to Stevens, oh, hey, do you know you have a right to a hearing before the Select Board on this subject? The Coombe Brook Bridge was returned to the E2 rating, which is that 88,000 or 84,000 plus rating. And that's what we have been dealing with since September 19th, 2022, the bridge and not the road. So Selectman Connolly says that we were dealing with the bridge and not the road, although the previous meeting, town manager says that, no, we were posted, it was all about the road. So...
Yeah, so there's some confusion. There's some obvious, the expectation is kind of like how when, I told you as an aside, actually that's going to be on April's agenda, like you were pissed. Like, no, I wanted on, I thought I was going to be on the next one, but there's discussions that are had, between individual members on a board that, you know what I mean? Like, so you can't talk more than three, whatever, at least on the school board.
Right.
But in this case, as one of the agenda setters, as the deputy chair, I was like, hey, because I know you were expecting it at this next meeting. I was like, it's going to be the first one in April. And then for 5 minutes, you grilled me about, that's bullshit, right? Like, that's the best way to say what you were saying to me is, like, you didn't care what I was trying to say. You're like, no, we need to do it immediately, but, it'll be addressed that we're going to have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll address it at the meeting, too.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
All right, one other thing I want to point out on here, this is another quote from these minutes, was, and this I believe, this is from the 17th meeting as well. Selectman Connolly forcefully stated the bidder who got this bid in late, shouldn't have gotten the contract. You can't just say mistakes were made. Selectman Connolly is said to withdraw the bid and give it contract to Carroll Concrete, who is the lowest bid on this, and I'll explain a little better in a minute. This is getting out of hand. It's not right. It needs to be taken up as an action item to change the award. He was not going to say mistakes were made. Sorry, enough is enough. Town Manager Reesberg cautioned the board on action. We will discuss the information in non-public session because it deals with personnel. Selectman Connolly was tired of the problems. He wanted something done, which I watched that, and that's a really good clip to watch of Barry is pissed at this point because
he knows it's wrong.
And he knows that this is nothing.
You got to make it right. Regardless,
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Of the personnel issue, handle that aside, but you still got to make your illegal action. You got to correct it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that someone, may or may not have gotten reprimanded or fired or whatever else. But, and I've said it on the show before. We're talking about contract awarding. If the cutoff is noon, the cutoff is noon.
Yeah, so what happened was, this was brought up by Mr. Stevens as well. This was at the same meeting, 17th. Mr. Stevens spoke on bidding on sand from the highway department. He passed out and explained documentation he had received from the Newport Public Works Department. 3 companies had received a bid packet. K. Stevens was on the town list for potential contractors for 2 years, and they were not invited to bid in 2022. So there's just another step of, so here's the bids. Because that's what happened. Like, you get on a list, so they'll send them out to the local people, and they had been on the list for 2 years, but then suddenly 2022, we just don't, I'm sure it was an oversight, though. He asked the board if there was a reason for his company not being included in the bid process. Chairman Kessler stated that Town Manager Reesberg has spoken to the parties involved. Some errors had been made by the highway department, and Mr. Stevens gave his opinion of the process to correct the error. He stated the contract should go to Carroll Concrete, and they were only responsible bidders who were approached. They followed the rules as stated in the bidding package. So what happened is Carroll Concrete was the lowest bidder at the time. But however, another bid came in after the closing of bids. So if it closed at noon on Tuesday, any bid after that is disregarded by state law. That's a law. That's not a policy. That's not I have leniency. No. You have leniency if you got no bids and then this one comes in late. But you would still go to the selectman and say, hey, this one came in late. It's the only one I got. Can we take it? And 99% of the time I say, yeah, this is the only bid you have. So
Because then it's an open and fair process.
yes. And there's very strict laws about all this. And the whole point is, if Carroll Concrete they follow the rules, they got it in on time and whatever, there to get the bid, not, if it's a friend of yours that's like, oh, hey, I can do that, and, but I'm late. No, the whole point of these bids and this whole law and the process is so that if I'm like, hey, Steve, give me this job, you got insight, I want this job, and, okay, yeah, I'll give it to you. It's so that nepotism can't happen, and so that cronyism, yeah, exactly, so that this isn't
a fair and open process.
And I want to point out that Mr. Stevens didn't even put a bid in on this, so he doesn't even have,
A dog
skin in the game. Yeah, in this particular one, but he's pointing out that this was done illegally, and then Selectman Connolly, admits that it was done not right and it should be immediately corrected. But I believe at that point they had already started doing the work or whatever. So it's like, oh, well, sorry, mistakes were made.
It's like I've said before, whenever you send somebody in to check out an organization, right? The 3 causes are usually you didn't know, you don't care, right? So you didn't know because of either poor training or whatever else. You don't care, which is usually it's not the case, right? Like that someone is just that they don't care. And what's the third one? Don't know, don't care, weren't trained properly, don't have the resources. So in this case, it doesn't matter if that person wasn't trained properly.
Nope.
Like if they weren't trained properly, then maybe the discipline for them is a little bit less than firing, right? But you still have an obligation to make it right, which is what Barry, it sounds like, was trying to do, which is like, it doesn't matter about any of this stuff. Like, the right thing to do is to reject that bid and go with
And
the
here's the
lowest
thing.
bidder that was submitted on time.
At the end of the day, no matter what you say, what's said, okay. So employee so and so messed up. Doesn't matter. It all comes back to the head of the DPW, who is 100% responsible for everything that happens. Just like I'm responsible for what happens to my employees. If my employees screw up at a customer's house, I am responsible because I am their boss. I am the one that's in charge of what's going on.
You assume the risk.
And the next one is the town manager is responsible for everything that's happened here. Everything. It's on his shoulders.
Yeah.
What happens when companies get bought out? Usually the first person fired is the CEO because, like, yep, we're not going to deal with that. We're going to get someone new, someone we know, whatever. So, but in this case, and I was told by one of the selectmen that it was handled behind closed doors. Oh, so what did you handle? Because the two people that in this whole situation that sure looked like should have been fired, they're still working. So what did you do? Did you talk to them sternly?
They did a Lindsey Graham.
Don't commit fraud anymore? Don't illegally accept bids that are after, don't illegally post roads anymore that affect just one company? Don't illegally send letters to the state anymore that is fraud with our our town of Newport,
Don't close roads that we didn't approve or bridges.
Yeah, and then lie and say, oh, wait, no, that was for the road. Oh, wait, but the meeting before you said it was the bridge, and you had two companies coming out to look at this.
Well, the escape mechanism
Ooh.
is he prefaced with he's not prepared to talk about it, but then he talked quite a bit about it.
Yeah.
After it was very clear that he had requested 2 weeks to do his research. So he had 6 weeks to do the research, and it's still, the story's not straight. At the end of the day, the story's not straight.
Yeah. And
at least on the public side. Now, they may have straightened it all out behind closed doors and whatever, but
well, they must not have straightened it out very well because
it just seems like Stevens is
still having an issue.
Yeah, why are they getting messed with when
it all goes back to the sidewalks and the fact that the town engineer said use this concrete, and they did, and it was the wrong concrete. And then Stevens spent $50,000 out of his own pocket to correct the situation at no expense to the taxpayer in Newport, no expense to anyone except for him. $50,000 is an awful lot of money, but he fixed it. Actually, flew an engineer in here from another state that would obviously have no ties to New Hampshire or anything to make sure it was non-biased to look at it like, hey, I don't want to do this again and have it fail, because if you remember that it was dug up by a village before.
Yeah.
And corrected the situation. So it just kind of starts there, and then it just goes on and on and on. And one of the things that Mrs. Stevens said is she asked what's going on. They have come to the select board meeting week after week, posing their issues and questions for answers from the board. They have received nothing. Mr. Reesberg has stated repeatedly that he is not prepared. And then it just says, on the 19th, he said that it's the first he'd ever heard of it. I asked to postpone it till the 3rd, and he'll find it out. And then on the 3rd, he says, oh, didn't know the topic was going to be brought up. Really?
Well, he can hide behind maybe it wasn't on the agenda. Did you look at the agenda?
It wasn't on the agenda.
But still, it
but
should have
him
been.
and Jeff make the agenda.
No, it should have been on the agenda because they said it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, mistakes happen, right? We all make mistakes. Even on our board, we've made mistakes. But this is like a pattern that's evolving here in the sense of it's affecting K.A. Stevens, the Stevens family.
Yeah.
And something seems amiss. Something doesn't seem right, especially when you got, false allegations of poor bridge building being sent to the state to get them blacklisted from the state, right? Because the state also probably keeps track of businesses that can
keep talking,
do bridges. Uh-oh. Tim is going to the backup paperwork. Oh, wow, it is on Town of Newport letterhead. You have the actual letter.
Yeah. I wasn't going to bring this up today, but, I'm on the topic and I'm fired up, so, okay, whatever. I I have multiples. So, right here, Town of Newport, March 24th, 2022, C.R. Wilkett, I guess, Project Manager, New Hampshire DPW, Bureau of Planning and Community, Mr. Wilkett, and I don't know, Wilkie, I don't know. I feel that it would be in the town's best interest to reject the bid, K. Stevens and Son, Inc., and in turn award the project to the second lowest bidder, Neil H. Daniels, Inc. This decision is based on first-hand experience with K. Stevens and Son on past town projects and their inability to complete projects in a timely fashion, often causing excessive delays for completion, which led to hard feelings between the residents that live and work around those projects and the town, as well as adding cost to the projects due to delays. It is also my understanding that we are not the only ones that have experienced these sort of scheduling shortcomings either. One example would be the town of Henniker, who recently contracted with K. Stevens and Son on a bridge project that suffered multiple delays, resulting in cost overages and disgruntled townspeople. Given our concerns with getting this project done on time and still within budget, I hope you will consider our bid. I look forward to hearing back from you soon. Sincerely, Todd Cartier, Public Works Director. So that's what you call fraud. Because according to the town of Henniker, unless they can somehow show me something different, but when people call down there and speak with them and they say that K. Stevens has never done any bridges in the town of Henniker, so how, if K. Stevens has never done a bridge, how could the town of Henniker have had the same issue? So name, letter, letterhead, that's fraud. That's illegal. Mm-hmm. But this individual still works for the town of Newport.
So it sounds like, from reading this letter, the issue is with, since part of it appears to be untrue, is they think that they didn't meet their projects on time.
Yes, and then talks about the project delays and the cost added to it. Well, that's funny, cost added to it. K. Stevens spent the money out of their pocket to correct the situation. What cost was added to the town? Because when you bid a project, the cost is a cost. Unless the only time you can change it is if something unforeseen comes up. We're digging up the sidewalk and realize that there's a buried such and such that has to be addressed. Okay, that's an add-on. But if it's like, oh, hey, the cost of concrete went up, $3 a ton or whatever, it doesn't matter. Stevens bid the job. It sucks.
So did Stevens get a copy of this letter?
That was 91 aid, Bert Spalding, 91 aid that through.
But do you know that whenever the Public Works Director sent this to?
Yeah, to my knowledge, it was not sent to K. Stevens. It was only found through a 91A request that Bert Spalding did to this project manager, who turned everything over to him within like an hour, I think he said, where there's been several 91A requests that Bert Spalding Sr. has put into the town and has still not got them. And so technically you have 5 days. So if I 91A request the town or the school in writing something, you have 5 days to comply and give them the information. Unless it's like, for instance, I 91A'd the police budget from last year, and Paul messaged me back and said, we're not quite done with the budget yet, but when it's ready, I can get it to you. Oh, that's an acceptable reasoning from the town or the school or whatever. So that would change that 5 days. Like, hey, it's not quite ready. Second it's ready, I'll get it to you, whatever. But in this case, he was told like April or something like that, 45 days, 50 days.
I watched that meeting where...
Yeah, and he still hasn't gotten it.
The county gave
he
his
also
documents within like a day or two. And
he also 91A requested stuff about the county, which is where the town's spending all kinds of legal fees on, because they've been suing the county for years now over the elevator and all this stupid shit.
It started before.
It did start before him, yeah.
Hunter,
but
Hunter.
It seems like it's escalated since then. But anyways,
well, that's why we allegedly can't use the elevator in the Opera House.
Yeah, supposedly it may be resolved, but nothing's been signed yet. But anyways, yes. But, yeah, so he 91A requested that and was basically told no. Or
in 44 days. I think it was 40-something days.
It was a lot of days. And
I'm going off memory.
So
he's brought it up.
Yeah. So Mr. Spalding said, okay, that's fine. I'll just go to the county. And the county complied right then and there because by law, you have to comply. You can 91A anything that is relevant to, any of these things. School board, we've had it. Gentleman come in on 91A request something, okay. Make sure he gets it within his 5 days.
Which he did not, because he came 2 weeks later, but it was mailed out because at the week meeting, right? So there's a meeting, and then we have a agenda setting meeting the following week, and then usually another meeting. At the agenda setting meeting, I had asked interim superintendent Magoon, and she said, "No, we got that out a couple days ago." And I think she even said we only have like 5 days.
Yeah,
Now, unfortunately, I think the mail. I think there might have been a storm, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's sent with that, like most people are reasonable.
Yeah, postmarked or whatever.
But so all this has been happening, and these are all happening at these public meetings. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't watch them or pay attention or whatever. Or maybe you've seen one, but you didn't see others. And so if you don't watch them all, and if you don't put all the dots together, it doesn't paint the story like we just painted for 3 meetings in a row. Like I wasn't prepared. I didn't know.
Well, it makes you concerned if they're blacklisting, if they are, which I don't know if Stevens got, because Stevens wouldn't talk to us, right?
Yeah, I just kind of sort of I reached out to Josh to say, hey, come on the show. And he just said that they're going a different avenue. And I don't know what that is, and it's not my business. Maybe he's suing the town, maybe he's not. I don't know. I have no clue. That's fine. Honestly, at the end of the day, I just wanted that one letter, which is, to me, the most important part, because I can just watch the meetings, read the minutes. Like, I've watched them already, but I can watch them again, and I can paint the picture for our listeners real easy, because it would just been easier with Josh, because then we really could have, got to super detail. But that's fine. That's cool. I get it. He probably doesn't want to be targeted even more. Like, oh, I thought this was, whatever. So, and then supposedly Bert said he was going to be at the meeting on Monday because they're still having issues with the road posting thing. I don't know. Maybe it won't be there. Maybe it's been resolved. And I want to make sure I say that. So if someone's like, see, he don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, okay. No, I'm just mentioning what was said. And I know this was talked about, this road posting thing, because we had the conversation with one of the selectmen at voting with Bert right there on Tuesday. And there was an issue with the way they did it, and so I'll be interested to see if it gets addressed. So if someone was to say, well, this has been an issue, well, yeah, it is. The other thing I'll point out, like I said, might as well just dump it all out today, and then we could still do something after. But at one of these meetings, Stevens was doing a job up on Maple Street for like a housing complex or whatever, and if everyone remembers, back in the spring, they finally paved Maple Street because the road was like ridiculous.
Yeah. Doug Ring went
out there and showed like, hey, look at the hole and all this. So from a conversation I personally had with Hunter, he's like, yeah, I talked to, I think, Pike, and they said for $30,000 they'll come in and they'll do the paving that you see, if you've driven on that road. And I was like, oh, great, because the reason I don't want to do a real great paving job, like rip it up and all that, is because coming down the road soon, supposedly, water and sewer is getting replaced.
Oh.
So, okay, yeah, you don't want to spend, $500,000 to pave a road, do it all right, sidewalks and everything, and then have to rip it out in 2 years, 3, whatever. Makes sense to me. I get it. I have no problem with that. Kudos to them for fixing it. Got it, whatever. So, in order to dig into streets, typically, depending on the town, you have to get a bond. All a bond is an insurance policy. Typical bonds are $5,000. So you call your insurance company, I need a bond for the town of such and such. I've done it a bunch of times, usually like Lebanon, Hanover, because they're more strict about these things. But, Claremont, same thing. I've done it. The whole point is, if the construction company digs into the road and you technically own that spot for like a year or 2 years, whatever it is. So if it settles or something, you have to go fix it because the town didn't create the issue. Your digging did. So, and there's a whole process of tamping and all that stuff to not make it happen. Because the last thing you do is you don't want a phone call from the town saying, hey, you need to come fix your work, because that's time, money, like,
right.
So you do it right, So anyways, Stevens needed a permit. So they went to the head of the DPW, Todd Cartier, and asked about a bond for like, what do I got to do? And he said, we need a $25,000 bond for you to open the street. And he just asked, well, why so much? Well, because the street's new. It's all been replaced, so whatever. So he went to the select board meeting, and he asked the selectmen, like, what's the formula here to figure out how much the bond is? Because I've also done jobs where bond's $1,000. It was like a side road. It wasn't a big deal. So he said, what's the formula? Supposedly they're going to look into like what other towns do, whatever. Mr. Reesberg stated that, I don't think we need a policy for everything. Basically, he believes that they should just pull it out their ass, I guess, and decide what they want to do. Now, what I just stated, the town of Newport, according to Mr. Reesberg, conversation I had with him, he could now deny it if he'd like, don't know, $30,000. He had Maple Street paved. I was impressed. 30 grand, he got that job done. They skim coated it. Road's still decent, right? So you want Stevens to spend, so the bond is $25,000. It's an insurance policy, but you have to pay a percentage. And I don't remember what it was. It's not horrible. Like a $5,000 bond, usually a couple $100. But $25,000 bond is going to be even more money. And so all that does is it just passes on to your customer that the job's going to cost more because they want an outrageous amount. So they wanted almost as much as what it costs to pave the whole entire street to get a bond for this project that they're going to dig in, size of this desk or whatever. They're probably going to dig into the sewer main or whatever. And they said they don't want a $25,000 bond. And I don't know in the end what the bond ended up being, but it was stated in the minutes and conversation now was, well, it's because the road's new. So it just shows, like, if this was me, I would have filed a lawsuit a long time ago. Josh seems to be kind of like, he grew up in this town. Well, I grew up in Croydon, but I've been in Newport my whole life. I graduated from Newport School. I've lived in Newport forever. He's trying to save face. He's trying to do what's right for the people. Because if you sue the town, it comes out of our pocket, lawyer fees, whatever. Yeah, we have insurance, but it doesn't matter. So I would have freaking sued so long ago. Like, and I'm not Mr. I hate lawsuits. I think this is what's destroyed so much of our country is this sue happy crap. Like, I choked on that piece of meat. It was too big. And, like, are you kidding me?
You don't have
like,
a knife?
Come
yeah,
on.
I'm with you. It's a personal responsibility.
Yeah. So if you want to look at all the events, Coonbrook was posted, and we just went over it in the show. Why was it posted? Well, because the bridge. We need to save the bridge because apparently that's what we do. We put a new bridge in. We're not going to drive over it because it ensure the life of the bridge. And then, oh wait, no, it was the road. Oh wait, no, it was the bridge. So, I mean, just follow the bouncing ball of lies. I've done it before. We were sitting in the SRO meeting when they tried to get 150% of the pay for the SRO, and I stood up and I said, is Mr. Burrows lying that he talked to the chief and this was all set, or is Mr. Reesberg lying that said he spoke to the chief this morning and said it's not all set, it's not a done deal, we need to figure this out still? And, of course, I didn't expect an answer. I was just making the point that one selectman was saying...
Didn't we talk to Chief?
We talked to Chief Wilmot before he left, and after, and he said it was all set.
Yeah,
there was no issue.
Set, yeah.
No, Hunter was just trying to get more money out of the school.
Well, that's what it appears. Like the people don't understand. Like you go to a private meeting to talk about stuff, but when you have stuff like this going on, where it appears to be, K.A. Stevens has been targeted.
Walks like a duck, talks like a duck. It's a duck.
Yeah. So if this kind of stuff can happen to Stevens, what can happen to anyone else?
Yeah.
Who's next? You? Me?
Well, I was at
Mr.
voting.
Spalding?
I was at voting and spoke to I don't know.
I just throw Mr. Spalding because he goes to every meeting in town and, he's got something to say. He's not going to, he doesn't mince his words. I don't agree with him on everything, obviously, but...
Yeah. Well,
but you know what I mean? My concern is like, even with this show and you pointing this out, what's going to happen, right?
Well, it was I talked to someone on Tuesday at voting, and he's like, yeah, I used to work for the town, and as soon as I spoke out against the town, suddenly, apparently something with his fence or something came up, and I don't know, and I have no proof of that, or it's just conversation that was said. maybe he did make it up, but just
that was his experience that he shared with you
exactly
from his perspective.
Just a regular citizen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, is my rock wall going to have something that, some code that was passed 30 years ago, and even though that rock wall has been up for 50 years, you know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of nickel and dime stuff is going to come to anybody that asks these questions? Like, these are valid questions.
Yeah. So let's recap. You have Coonbrook Bridge that was posted, and totally legal. They had no legal right to post it because only a selectman can post it. Then the town manager says it's because the bridge we need to save.
Well, no, he said we need to wait 2 weeks to give me time to prepare.
He says that every meeting, yes. Yes.
But the point is the minutes have him saying, I wasn't prepared. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, which technically may be correct if it's not on the right. So, like, he's not lying because it's not on the agenda. But if it came up during public comment, and you say, give me 2 weeks, do you not expect the public to come back and say, you told me 2 weeks, I'm here now to find out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
it doesn't matter if it's on the agenda.
Exactly. You said, quote, I'll have information at the next meeting. And then you said, I didn't have it. And then you went to the third meeting in a row and say, I didn't know we were going to talk about this tonight. Because you thought it was just going to go away on its own? I don't know. So you have Coonbrook Bridge. You have this whole bid thing that was done illegally that didn't involve Stevens, but he brought it up to the board where Keller Concrete should have got a bid and another company got the bid, being the bid was in late. Interesting. You have Sand Hill, where you have a letter right here stating that, because of these concerns we have and this, this bridge that was done in Henniker, we believe that they should be disqualified.
Well, see, critical thinking would tell you that of past town projects. So if I were receiving this, like when I was in the military, like if somebody was to make a complaint about one of my teams that go out and support a unit, I would say I need to know exactly what they did wrong on these projects, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you would think that whoever received this would be like, well, what time delays and which projects, so that whenever they call and ask why they're not on these, why they're not getting their bids accepted or whatever, I can give them very specific data that shows they were 3 weeks late on this, they were 2 weeks late on this, because that's not in here. These are just blanket statements that...
Right, and clearly if you want to, we could...
Now, it's not a blanket statement about the bridge in Henniker, which you have said that they never did a bridge in Henniker.
Mr. Spaulding Sr. called Henniker and said, has Stevens ever done a bridge in Henniker? No. Mr. Connell said, Mr. Spaulding said that Mr. Connell also called to check into it to see what was going, and suppose the person said the same thing. No, I didn't message Josh or call Josh before the show and be like, hey, did you do, and I will probably after call him just to make damn sure. But the fact that this letter came out in that meeting, pretty sure he would have said, oh, wait, no, I did do a bridge in Henniker.
Yeah, because I think it was talked about.
And the fact that clearly this letter swayed the state to give it to Daniels because Daniels is $100,000 more. So we spent more money, and this partially was a state job. It was a mixed job, I believe. So it wasn't funded fully from the town. But the point is, taxpayers spent $100,000 more because of this letter.
And it was delayed 3 months?
Yeah, they got a 3-month extension. Which
in here, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, and honestly...
I mean, what's a timely fashion? I guess a 3-month extension's timely? A quarter of a year?
I wouldn't think. But
you know what I mean? There's no standard definition of anything in here either. So even if everything in here is correct, it's vague, other than they did a poor job, allegedly.
And in the defense of... Daniels or any construction company, delays do happen. It happens.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah.
All the time.
This isn't even about Daniels at all. Like,
no, I don't. Whatever. This is about why do we spend all this extra money, and why was this letter sent to the state that clearly isn't factual, and
doesn't appear to be factual.
Yeah,
based on
in fact,
Spaulding and
that didn't happen.
Mr. Connell.
This is fraud. This is bid rigging. This is interfering with bidding. Like, I don't know what other terms.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a lawyer. Like, you
No.
just know it's not right.
Right. It's illegal. Either way
It's
you look at it.
morally
It's
not
illegal,
right, and
but it's illegal. It goes so much further than that.
Well, it's illegal to accept a bid after bid closing time. Like, there's no,
Right.
like, you train someone poorly if that's how you.
But at the end of the day, if it was just, such and such was handling the bids, and doesn't matter.
Yeah, like-
your head is on the chopping block. You were the town manager of this town. You were responsible. 100%, you were responsible.
You're talking to a guy here that was held responsible for 30-year-old men and women's decisions that they made off duty. So I have no qualms holding somebody to account for their employees.
Yeah. And so then, like, there's just, all this Steven stuff. And then there's just, like, all the bullshit we've gone through with the town manager and the school. Like,
Well, the SRO.
the SRO in particular, especially the SRO, which,
Kicking us out of the garage
right, which,
because we wanted to make repairs. They keep wording it as we were.
Right.
That's just as an aside note to that, I understand that leasehold, whatever, like they're wording it as if we were going to break the lease when we were trying to figure out what repairs could we make. Could we even make a dent with a $6,000? You know what I mean? Like, because that would probably take years to.
my question would be, that what I would find interesting is,
Meanwhile, the town's in there measuring out so they can pour concrete into those 2 bays,
yeah, and got bids,
allegedly. Yeah.
got bids and everything before we got kicked out. I mean, kicked us out the 21st, the day after the 20th meeting, but didn't vote to kick us out until 2 weeks later on the 6th. It's interesting. And I will say this right here publicly. I've said it before. I'll say it again. There was communication issues on both sides. We, as a school board, could have communicated better. The select board could have communicated better. I accept that 100%. This is not 100% on the select board. I mean, they voted to do this. That's not on us.
I
but-
even spoke to
Yep.
Jim Burrows and said, hey, just so you know, I don't know if you saw our school board meeting,
Yep.
but I really think that if we wouldn't have had the series of unfortunate events where you didn't make our first meeting, if we'd have rescheduled it, then we may not even be at this point. But my concern was that the perception was that this was all a surprise to everybody on the town, that we were unhappy, even though they've been trying to kick us out of there for years now.
According to multiple people, yes.
Yeah, according to
Multiple people,
Multiple
yeah.
people. This wasn't the first time that it came up.
Yeah. And there's other things I can't discuss right now with the school because I don't have permission to do so. But I'm sure it'll come out soon. But it just enough's enough. Like, what kind of town do we want to live in?
Well, that's the whole thing. Is
like, we're a town, we're a community, and you have one side trying to extort the other side for money for time and a half on SRO, even though they're not paying that officer time and a half. And then, we're raising the rent to $10,000. So it's just taking money from the school and giving it to the town, which is our tax money.
So on that note, raising it to 10,000, XXX,
Plus
and having us pay for our own electricity. At that point, we're just giving them $10,000 to what? Plow the snow and block in our doors, allegedly.
Yeah.
Not that there's any retribution or anything that goes on in town.
No, that would never happen. No one would ever.
It must have just been an accident that
Right.
instead of plowing right, they plowed left, or vice versa.
But we can keep even going. Let's look at this. I would dare say 99% of every employee that's left the town of Newport that have been employees of the town of Newport have left because of the town manager. And you go around and you ask these employees.
Well, that's what's because I'm new to the town, right? Relatively speaking, I lived there less than 5 years, and it's interesting that you meet somebody because, like, I had originally applied based on Dr. Gallagher's recommendation for the econ development job, and that was whatever from my standpoint, I had just retired, and to me, if I'm placing kids with businesses, that's not a 9-to-5 job, because I feel like now you're responsible for those. Like, that's the way I do it, right? Like, if those kids do something wrong at these workplaces, and I'm trying to get to a point here, which is it's just something just doesn't seem right. I guess that's my whole thing. Like something is not like it should. Like you said, like we all should be working together. You're going to charge us $10,000 more, but now if we're paying for our electricity, there's no.
Yeah, you're going to charge. We were paying like
For a building that was built for both, according to
Town Report
in
1978.
1978. So it wasn't like let's let the school board in. Like the town manager at the time wrote it up about what a great
To get
way
it to pass
to
was
spend money.
a joint
is
effort.
It's a joint. It's going to benefit the entire town. And now it seems like we have things that. Yeah, and there's been comments made about how high the school's budget is and everything else, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we have a lot of more employees, but just because our budget's higher doesn't mean that we have money to throw around. I mean, like we had discussions with Dr. Scott about the budget, where in 5 years there's not going to be any. Like the turnip is going to be dry. Like if there's
You're at a tipping point. You can't. There's no more. So if the state doesn't do their job and get with this, man, it's gonna be a serious issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's bigger things that we need to be worried about instead of working together as a team. And it should be a team effort. I mean, we tried. We had a joint meeting there in the fall.
Yeah, we definitely need to have another one. Publicly, obviously, to
Hash all this
things.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the comments that have been made to me is where am I represented as a taxpayer? Because it doesn't seem like it's here. Like, who's looking out for me and my tax dollars and everything? And my answer to those people are well, in my role in school board, I am, because I care about the town overall. Like I said before, if Donna's like, hey, we got this great thing, it's great for the school, but it's going to be bad for the town, well, guess what? I'm going to vote no. Because overall, I'm responsible to the taxpayers of Newport, not just the school or just the students. Maybe that's my primary that I'm there, to make education better and whatever. But I represent 6,500 people, give or take, in Newport that expect me to do the job.
They don't have the time to show up day in and day out. They want you to ask tough questions. They're not going to agree with every decision that you make.
Just like the select board, decisions they make are supposed to be based off of what their constituents think would believe that is best for Newport.
And I think that most constituents would want us all to work together, to have shared
they would ask
goals
why
you know what I mean?
Why are you taking from one entity to give to another when you're just taking from my left pocket and giving it to my right pocket?
Why are you nitpicking things that are 4 years old, 3 years old? Now all of a sudden there's issues, and it's we can fix all this internally. There are certain things that the town has the ability to fix within minutes.
Yeah,
from my perspective, and maybe it takes hours, but
so to wrap up,
it's concerning.
Yeah, if anybody would like this letter, timandsteveshownh@gmail can give you a copy of this letter. One of these copies is actually for somebody else already. You can go to the select board meetings. We should go to the select board meeting on Monday anyways and voice your concern about all kinds of things.
And if you don't want to talk, just show up. Or if you don't want to show up, watch it so that you can form your own opinion. Because, we all have our biases and everything else. And
email your selectmen. All their email addresses are on the town website. The minutes for everything I talked about today, which this was all taken from minutes. I didn't add things to, so when I said I read something from the minutes, I read it from the minutes. We jumped around, but it's because I only need certain points. I don't think listeners want me to read the minutes from 3 minutes and meetings in a row, especially
the full minutes.
Yeah, I would have lost you a long time ago. But anyways, they're on the website. NCTV on their website has all these meetings that you can watch, which you can watch it all live play out. So I know
everything just needs to be above board,
I know October or something.
and that applies to us too. I'm casting stones or whatever, but our board could use some improvement. that's not this. You know what I mean? Like I don't sitting here. I'm not trying to cast stones in the sense of like, all hope is lost, blah blah blah. But like, and I understand that personnel dealings have to be held behind closed doors, but if this is correct and that's not true, and it directly affects K.A. Stevens' ability to get work, which, by the way, this is a local business, which helps our own town's economy, right, or the areas.
But the other thing I want to point out is when you're a public employee, there's not a lot of right to privacy. So
right.
For them to come forward and say, we fired such and such for this, that is not a personnel issue and that is not a closed door issue. That should be public. Most of the time, if you read it in the newspaper, this is how it works. Like, I know exactly how much every employee makes if I choose to go on and look through the budget, because your income is public knowledge. So,
like, and once you're in the public realm,
yes, they're just hiding behind, it's I can't talk about it. It's non-public. It has to go non-public. No, that's not true. Now, there's some ongoing investigation, like legal investigation. Sure, we can't talk about it yet. However, when the investigation's done, it should be brought forward to the public. Like, okay, I couldn't talk about it then, but I can now. This is what happened. This is government, and there's not supposed to be secrets. This is open government. It's we the people. You work for us. And yes, I understand fully. There's things that we know that we can't talk about. Usually because it involves a student who's under the age of 18, and I legally couldn't disclose it because of that. Or there's an ongoing investigation about something. But once that's done, no, they don't have that privacy. This isn't someone working at Ruger's that, you couldn't just go spew out their information, because now you'd be subject to a lawsuit. You're a public employee. That's not how it works. So, get involved, reach out to your selectmen and ask them, hey, why has this all happened? And there just seems to be is it because you don't want to mess with the fact that, this whole rec center thing, is that what it is about the community center? That, like, if you were to fire Mr. Reesberg, that he would somehow take the money with it, like, because there's donations and stuff. Is that the concern? Is that the concern of the select board, that's what's happening? And
I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm just asking the question, because how many things do you have to do and literally lie, not only to the board of selectmen who he works for, but the town people? He lied. We proved it today. It's not hard to find. So, I'm sorry, but if Donna, the interim superintendent, starts lying to us, I'm going to motion to fire her. Because if I can't trust my employee, then I'm going to find an employee I can trust, because clearly you can't do your job. And I think everyone on the board, on our board, would agree with that. And I think anyone in the community would agree, like, if you're going to lie about things and try to cover your ass on stuff, like, then you probably shouldn't work here, because you don't have the best interest of the town.
Well, there's a difference between a lie and, forgetting something, but, like...
Of course, people forget things.
Yeah.
But I think today we showed pretty clearly.
Well, it's... you have to be pretty technical to say, well, like I said, it's not on the agenda, so I didn't know we were going to discuss it. Yeah. That's not really correct, though, because you did say, give me 2 weeks and I'll have the information. How many meetings? So you should have had the information, even if it wasn't on there, because, the citizen brought it up during public comment, right? Was that how it originally came up? So, if it's not lying, it's equivocating.
And in the end, what supposedly happened was Stevens was supposed to go sit down with the town manager behind closed doors and talk about it. And I believe the selectman basically told him that's what he was going to do, right? Told the town manager what he was going to do. And I'm sorry, I don't find that acceptable. So what? You can kiss his ass behind closed doors and, I'm sorry, mistakes were made. How much fraud, illegal crap has to happen before someone loses their job? Because I know if I did these things, I would be in deep shit.
Yeah, I would have been accepting a bid after closing, even if it was my
even if you take this letter out of it,
I would have been put on.
Yes. There's no doubt about that.
They would have said, you need to go take 2 weeks off while we investigate this, and once they do that, you're pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is one of those things where,
And it's like, okay, so they made a mistake on the bidding thing, okay? Then did someone call the state attorney general's office and say, hey, our town, we just made a mistake. We want to apprise you of it immediately, and this is the action we took to correct it.
hopefully they did, but we don't know what they did.
Don't know. Maybe they did, but I'm
would
going
be
to
nice
assume
to
no.
know. Yeah,
but,
it'd be nice.
but they're not going to tell you.
But
'Cause
they
it's
should.
secret.
Why?
No, because it's personnel involved. So as long as personnel are involved, they can screw up as much as they want, and we'll hide behind that and say, oh, yeah, well, personnel involved, I can't talk about it. Oh, really? Huh. Don't think they'd see that same in a court case.
Well, I mean, a reasonable jury of your peers would, if this is not true, would say, this is, I mean, golly. I don't, maybe Stevens is, maybe they're getting whatever it is that they want, right? Like, we're not doing this on behalf of them. We're doing this on behalf of the taxpayers.
Exactly.
Because we need to know the truth.
Exactly.
We need to know that our town's being run fairly and that our local businesses aren't being unfairly targeted. Because that's how it appears.
Yeah.
It's all just a coincidence, perhaps, but I'm to the point in my life to where when there's like 7 coincidences, now there's a pattern and something's not right. Somebody doesn't like somebody, somebody's holding a grudge, and we just can't operate that way. Like, it's not personal. You know what I mean? Like, we sit here and talk about all this, but it's not personal. Now, if I were on the receiving end of this, I would take it personally.
Yeah, Steven should take it very personal.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, to me, it's not personal. This is just business, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it. Like, I'm not going to say it's politics because it's not politics. It's right and wrong and the things that should be done. And I know Hunter would say, oh, come sit with me. And, Hunter, sorry, I have no interest in come sitting with you, and you can try to spin the shit all you want, but I've done my own research. I'm not some uninformed voter who will just buy it, believe it. Nope. Sorry. You got the wrong person on the wrong side for this time. And I will keep pursuing all of this, and I'll keep digging, and I'll keep finding things, because I know there's so much more. There's just things I can't say because there's still people that work for the town that, wouldn't want to lose their job. So
You got some whistleblowers lined up?
yeah, maybe.
You better do some research on how to
protect the
whistleblower.
So anyways, April. Why did I say October? April 4th is deliberative at the high school gym. I believe it's 9 o'clock, and we will talk more about it.
No, it's not 9 o'clock. It's a Tuesday night.
What?
6 o'clock.
What?
I kept wondering. I'm like, why is it on the 4th? Because I'm like,
weird.
Nikki is going for Easter somewhere. I'm like,
All right, so
it's on a Tuesday
in a couple
night.
weeks, there's a deliberative. Next show, I will have the time, the place, the everything 100% with accuracy, because apparently I don't have the accuracy right now. I thought it was a Saturday because oftentimes that's when people do these kind of things. But apparently Steve says it's Tuesday. But please come out. There's a lot of bond articles, and I don't even know them all yet. We should know, I think as of Monday's meeting coming up, that we should know them all. I know there's a petition article to give the school a 99-year lease on those 2 bays that we've been kicked out of, which will have to pass the deliberative and be voted on by the taxpayers of the town. So it should be a really interesting deliberative. Get involved.
Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. Time, 6 p.m. Location, Newport Middle High School.
There you go.
Warrant articles coming soon. Zoning amendment and budgets. Click here for the proposed budget. So they have a proposed budget online.
Yeah, so there you go. And that's where'd you get it? School's website? No.
No. NewportNewHampshire.gov.
There you go. So the same place that you can get the minutes is the same place you can get this information. Please show up, vote. And then as far as these topics go, email, call, stop in, see your selectman and ask them questions and say, hey, well, why is this? Why is that? I've got questions like the rest of us do. And how come this can happen, but this doesn't happen?
And the thing about this is these questions have been asked publicly, so it's not
these have been asked.
It's
just
not
never
like you and
answered.
I are sitting here cherry picking minutes and everything else. This has been a hot topic since September.
Yep. And nothing has been addressed publicly.
Yeah,
Except
like that,
Mr.
yeah.
McConnell saying that this shouldn't happen. This is ridiculous. This needs to stop. And he then states that it was the bridge. It wasn't the road. So he says that it was the bridge. Hunter previously had said it was a bridge and then changed to the road. So, like, I don't.
Something's not right. Like, I got it. Mistakes can be made, but like, you need to have the story just needs to be the truth. The truth will always
I'm sorry,
make its
but for
way to the
those
light.
5 selectmen to see this, because there's no way in hell they don't see it. Like, do you not have any dignity or respect for yourself? That, like, the town manager is fabricating stories, lying to you about stuff. Clearly, look at it. Like, but
I don't know if it's fabricated, but it's definitely there's some equivocation and some.
I would love to see the reports from those 2 companies. And why would we pay money when the state does
State's
this
the
for
one that
nothing?
doesn't. Yeah, that's why.
So that
like
seems
you were
kinda
saying, that's where all the dots
fabricated.
don't add up.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fabricated.
Well, unless they can produce these, and how much did we pay for them to do it if the state's required to do it? So that
Well, when
if we
he was
did do
asked-
it, that cost us money.
Well, when he was asked when it was done, he couldn't give an answer. I don't know.
Well, see, that's
I don't
why you
remember.
can't go on pure memory. Like that's why.
He
Like,
really
even when Jeff corrected us, he was like, "Hey, go look on your tapes or whatever, or our tapes."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he was like, "No, this is what."
And honestly, like, yeah, you can read the minutes, gets faster, but you don't get the whole story as well as if you
Watch it,
Watch it.
hear the tone of voices.
because the minutes
watch
don't
the body
have
language.
everything. You know, the minutes don't have the. Well, I don't remember exactly when it was, or I talked to Todd.
Well,
you know,
communication is 90% nonverbal, so
yeah.
like I can listen to what someone says, but I'm also watching and studying their mannerisms, how they're behaving,
Yep.
how their voice changes,
Yeah.
how their eyes shift.
Shifty eyes. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. The show's been long, but yeah, please. And if you watch the show, tell your friends and neighbors that they should watch the show too. And I would imagine that this is news to a lot of people. Some people know a little bit of it, but and like I said, we can back all this up with with the minutes and everything else. And
Yeah, like again, because they went to non-public or said they had to go to non-public, there's a portion of the story that we don't know, and that's what you're asking for. Is like eventually you need to come out with the truth.
yeah,
Because that's the issue, Tim, at the end of the day, is
but at the end of the day,
if you don't know the truth, you can't make things better.
you can't make any good excuses to this letter, though.
Especially if that's not correct about the bridge in Henniker.
Now, if you present me with a letter from someone in Annika saying, yes, this did happen, then I will publicly apologize that this letter is...
Retract the whole show,
Retract?
delete it off. And
No, the letter, and only the letter, because all the rest of it's same. It doesn't change nothing, but...
That's true. Well, yeah.
And clearly, if Stevens was upset about that whole the bidding thing, and they knew that they screwed a bridge up at another place, they probably want a public to come out and be like, "Oh, hey, why wasn't I chose for this?" And bring it up, because if you make a mistake as a company, the last thing you want to do is like, "Hey, let's just make this public a big thing so that everybody can see that I make mistakes and
That's
whatever."
true. I'd be like,
Yeah, you would just be like, "Okay, let's not talk about the bridge. Let's talk about the road posting." Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you on Monday at the selectmen meeting. And like I said, you can email in timandsteveshownh at gmail, and you can get a copy of this letter. If you have questions or whatever, you can go to the town's.
I was saying, thank Doug Ring.
Yeah, thank you, Doug Ring, for sponsoring the show. Doug spoke up at a few of these meetings about these things as well. And yeah, get involved, because it's tough. It seems like you can't change national stuff, which we fight with that every day. Like, it's frustrating for us. We talk about it, but it doesn't seem to change it. But you can change your local stuff, because your vote does matter and your voice matters. And I'm pretty sure enough pissed off people start asking questions and demanding answers. Bet those selectmen will give you the answers. So have a great day, guys. Have a great weekend. And good luck to the kids tonight at the coffee house thing. We'll see you there. Have a good one.
Artlist.io